Body fat loss. Okay? For some of us, this is where we need to be. Whether it's slimming down right before the games or whatever competition we're getting ready for, or to decrease our body fat even during training so that we can increase gymnastics volume, monostructural volume, without having that being weighed down feeling. Okay? An easy way that I've seen work over and over and over again is to take your baseline block prescription. Okay, so let's just say we have an 18 block person. And you can either choose to do it one or two ways. You can subtract 1 block of carbohydrate per day and see how the body's affected, see how the training's affected, or you can even take it as far as if you want to put it on fast forward just a little bit, you could do 1 block per meal. So we'd look at a total of, if we're subtracting 1 block per meal, a total of 5 carbohydrates per day. In theory, what would happen is that we're decreasing the amount of storage potential, decreasing that insulin loading. Okay? Now, with this one, what you really have to be careful of is that weight loss and performance are very closely tied together. I think a lot of us have experienced this where we've played with the amount of carbohydrates that we take in per day, and it seems like everything's going even keel for a long period of time, and then all of a sudden you tank. Okay, I've experienced this again and again and again, and the thing that I always resort back to is going to that baseline zone block prescription. You can fix it in just a few days. Okay, but the thing is you have to recognize it. Now the same thing here, there is no healthy way to underfeed an organism, so what I recommend doing is taking and reverse whatever number of carbohydrates you delete, we're going to add that back in with fat calories or fat blocks. And the conversion, every time you subtract 1 carbohydrate, we're going to add 3 fat blocks. Calorically, it's not exact, but it's pretty darn close. It's about 4 calories away. Okay? Now the thing about fat is that it's neutral with regards to your blood sugar, and that's why we can do that. It doesn't change the level of insulin that you have floating around in your bloodstream. All right? So now, the last real big goal-oriented deviation that we can have is our energy and our recovery. Okay? With this said, we can start talking about post-workout meals. 75% of the games athletes take some sort of post-workout meal. We didn't specify whether that was a whey protein or some sort of food supplement, or if that was real food. Okay, we could go into the data and kind of learn a little bit more, but just realize that 79% of all the games athletes, 75% took in some post-workout meal. All right, now here's some choices. Number one, we've got real food, we've got whole food, and we've got liquid nutrition. We're going to talk about those just a little bit. But first, realize that exercise is a physiological stressor. What it does is it does damage to our muscles. Okay? When we damage our muscles, we increase our soreness, and we also increase our recovery demand. Now with that, our muscle's going to remodel during our recovery periods. And that remodeling requires resources, proteins and carbohydrates. That's how we adapt to these physiological stressors. All right, so now looking at that, what levels of proteins and carbohydrates are necessary in order to recover from these workouts that we're doing? Anywhere from 0.4 to 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight for carbohydrates. Proteins, 0.2 to 0.4 grams per kilogram of body weight. Now, I don't really care about going back to the grams. We want to stay on the same page with both. I want to stay on the same page with you guys and with our athletes. So what this would equate to is if I have, I'm just going to give you me as an example. I weigh 93 kilograms. If I go on the low end of 0.4 for the carbohydrates, because our workouts are fairly low in duration, we're going to look at 3 blocks for that 93 kilograms. For protein, 4 blocks. That's wrong. I had them switched up. 4 blocks For that protein, if we take the lower end, the 0.2 to 0.3, we're looking at 3 blocks of protein. Okay? We're going to omit fat because it slows the digestion of these two. All right? Now, with that said, we want to take advantage of that window of that window, the 30-minute window where our body is the most sensitive to insulin. We're going to take advantage of that insulin shock that we're going to give our body so that we can shuttle the nutrients back into our muscles, so that we've got replenished glycogen stores, both in the muscle, the liver, and also, some of you guys have felt it. After a workout, you just feel like you're in a daze. That's that hypoglycemia feeling. Okay, we need to shuttle all that stuff back in there. Now, with all that said, we've got some choices. Again, you can go into the whole foods option, where we're going to eat proteins, some source of chicken or something like that, carbs, apples, oranges, all that stuff, or we can have a liquid nutrition post-workout. But because we want to take advantage of that 30-minute window, what's preferable? The liquid. It's quickly digested. It's much easier to drink post-workout than it is eating a meal because you want to take advantage of that 30-minute window. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to finish Fran and then sit down to a meal of 3 and 4 blocks. Sounds terrible. Okay? So shake up a quick whey protein with some coconut juice. We've got our protein, we've got our carbohydrate. We can take it down in less than 2 minutes. All right. Now with that said, we could jump into all different types of whey protein. We could talk about egg protein. Just realize that there's options out there, and the options are specific for every individual. If you got somebody with allergies that have allergies to lactose, hydrolyzed whey is probably the best option. Okay. If you have somebody who's got an allergy to gluten, egg protein is probably the best option. Okay. So just work with what works best for you. Having established all of these markers and trained ourselves to eat these amounts and the 5 meals per day and all that stuff, we've got a baseline that we can deviate from based on our training volume. Now, if I take an athlete that's 210 pounds, 14% body fat, okay, you might consider that heavy. That's me, right? I'm 14%. Andy, you're 12, right? What we're looking at is we're looking at about 30 pounds of body fat, which leaves us with about 180 pounds of lean body mass. For a training baseline, we're going to take that 180 pounds and we're going to multiply it by 0.7. For the 1 watt a day guy. That's where they're at in their season. We're going to divide that sum by 7, and we're going to come up with 18 blocks. That's training baseline for that person. Make sense? We can divide that over 5 meals. We've got 4 for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We've got 2 snacks, post-workout being one of them, of course, because we're currently at 1 post-workout meal per day because that's what we assess the training volume at. And then we've also got a snack at some point. Boom. Super easy to do. Now, with that said, later on in the season, we see this athlete bump the training volume from 1 to 2 workouts per day. We take that same 180, we multiply it by 0.8 for maybe a strength workout, maybe 0.85 if we have a longer Metcon, okay? We'll take 0.85 just as an example, divide it by 0.7, and all of a sudden we're at 22 blocks. So the day when we add in the 2 WODs, we've got a deviation off the baseline at 22 blocks. Otherwise, we're going to end up at a caloric deficit, and eventually it's going to affect your training. If we throw in 2 workouts a day for a week straight, at this, you're going to feel like crap within a couple weeks. But here, we're making up the difference. Now, later on in the season, the athlete decides to take 3 workouts a day, start testing it, see how the body responds. We take the 180, we could go up to 0.1. And that equates to roughly 25 blocks. So athlete-specific, training volume-specific meal plans. Total volume of food. Very simple to do. Very simple to do for yourself and for your athletes. Okay? Now with that said, once we have this baseline block prescription for multiple training volumes, it's super easy to apply it to training day. I'm sorry, not only training day, but competition day, game day. If you have trained yourself, just like you would throw 3 workouts a day, trying all sorts of different combinations of workouts, we're going to train ourselves to eat this stuff and see what works best for us. Hey, I can't eat veggies all day long. Hey, I find that meal replacement shakes that balance out to that 25 blocks work best for me. If you train and put the stimulus into your body and see how you react to it, we can see, hey, this is working for me, or hey, it's not working for me.